Total Eclipse is an anime adaptation of the adult game Muv-Luv, and takes place in a world where evil aliens eat people, and the living people, mostly young people, fight back by piloting giant mecha suits. Sound familiar? Sound like every other mecha anime? You'd be right if you said yes, because this is as generic as it gets. There are a few sparks of goodness here and there, but not throughout. And overall, Total Eclipse comes across as a wannabe teen action drama that definitely understands action, but doesn't really understand drama. The story centers around a lieutenant called Yui who is leading a project where giant mecha suits are being researched and developed to perfection in order to combat the cannibalistic beta monsters that threaten humanity. A team of test pilots are recruited under her, and one of them is Yuya Bridges. Yuya hates all things Japanese, including Yui herself, so there's tension between him and her at first, and predictably, that tension eventually decreases, and eventually Yui wants to get laid with Yuya. Now, from a certain perspective, it looks like since Yui has no friends as they all got killed by the beta, she's trying to fill that personal gap by trying to get with her subordinates. There are implications in terms of the boss trying to bang her employee, but it's never ever addressed, so it's okay! Once more, other females who work on the research project also want to get with Yuya, but since Yuya has friends in the form of his team, he doesn't fall in love with these women back as he doesn't have any personal gaps to fill. He has buddies, he has a top job, so what more does he need? But what do all these women see in Yuya? I haven't got a bloody clue! Yuya is good looking and he's smart, but outside of all that, he is as stereotypical as a leading man type gets. He's not unique, he's not interesting, and he's not really that different to any of the other males in the series. All the romances revolve around these women really liking him, yet it's never really explained why they like him in the first place. Hence, all the romance becomes redundant. There were plenty of males in the series, so would it have hurt for these attracted women to actually say why they prefer Yuya over the other males that are similar to him? That would have at least cleared up all this mystery surrounding the romances which the anime is focusing on so much. But right now, let's just say that Yui falls in love with Yuya because the script said so. What about the non-humans? What about the beta monsters that are eating everybody? Those beta monsters are scary as hell. Credit to whoever thought them all up. They are so freakishly designed and so freakishly dangerous that I felt genuine threat whenever they were on the screen. There's many different types of beta monsters too. There's laser class beta which organically produce lasers which can shoot down anything in the sky. There's tank class beta which scoop you up and shove you into their mouths, amongst many other types, each with their own set of skills for different types of situations. It's terrifying! It's an invincible army! If the beta aliens were real-life invaders, humanity would be completely and utterly screwed. And the weird thing is, the beta aren't really the bad guys here. They are animals who naturally want to eat, and humans just so happen to be on the dinner menu. It's a real shame that we don't find out more about the beta in the anime, other than that they're this huge threat. How do they breed? How did they evolve over time? Why are there different classes in the first place? Were they designed by aliens to be their own army? Anyway, I think the decision to film them in a way that obstructs our vision of them most of the time, such as them having lots of lights behind them, or they're in the dark, or they're within an army, was a very smart way to film them. It made them even more nightmarish whenever they were on the screen. They are walking, killing viruses. It would have been nice to have one episode which just shows the day-to-day life of the beta monsters. Another part that I liked was the action for about the first half of the series until it starts getting a little too shaky. The action is, for the most part, clearly shot despite all the all-around chaos, and all the battles are super intense, because since the first beta battle in episode 2 genuinely showed mecha pilots die in numerous horrible ways, there's real threat developed as everybody involved can very easily die. I thought this was the main direction the series was going to go in. I watched the first battle with my jaw open at the sight of these schoolgirls getting blown up and eaten, and I thought Total Eclipse would be this horror mecha hybrid, which would have worked immensely well as lives are actually in danger this time around. But nope! All that potential was quickly thrown out the window, which was, of course, not a welcome thing. There is bloodshed here and there, but ultimately the anime sets itself up to be this exciting gore fest, only to walk away from that after episode 2 for some reason. What is this anime ultimately trying to be? A mess of multiple genres, many basic characters, and lack of action, which the anime was clearly good at. Heck, there were only 3 intense battles throughout the entire anime series, and the rest of the time we have dodging between below average attempts at drama, romance, and even comedy. It should have just stuck to being a mecha horror, with maybe hints of romance, starring the schoolgirls as they train to become mecha pilots. That would have been badass! None of the characters really interested me, except for one, and that is Teresa. Teresa is this small and fiery and adorable girl from Nepal who constantly picks fights and shows a lot of energy. She is pretty much the main reason to watch this anime, and I cannot comprehend the fact that she is not the main character. The producers knew she was the best character because she gets the most show-stealing moments, yet they never thought that she was strong enough to take the lead? Seriously? If you have an interesting show-stealing character, you make him or her the lead so that everything around that character stays afloat. But no, we get 2 bland people who look like they've just come off a hentai to get most of the screen time. I would have complained a lot less if Yuya and Yui had actually swapped places, and Yuya was in charge of doing very little, and Yui was the arrogant test pilot. That would have been a lot more interesting than the actual setup, because Yui has a stronger backstory, so we understand her motivation for working in the military a lot more than Yuya. The other characters, outside of Teresa, are bland and hollow too. We get VG, who's this Italian womanizer, and Stella, who's this Swedish philosopher type who somehow stays calm in most situations. It's never explained why VG and Stella are the way they are. Not even in a sentence. Is VG just lonely? Does Stella just accept death? We never find out, hence everybody is really two-dimensional. Even though we never find out that much about Teresa, at least with her, we understand her enough to realise her as a character. Imagine if she had her own anime. We can already imagine what she would get up to and how she would handle various situations. Now that's the making of a strong, believable character. Not 2 hentai models who are badass in the battlefield and normal as hell off the battlefield. And the worst thing about this is, outside the fact that Teresa clearly would have been better off as the main character, is that the anime actually focuses on trying to develop relationships between the characters, and it fails completely because the characters themselves aren't separate enough from each other to make the relationships work. It almost works between Teresa and VG because those 2 are opposites, but even so, they never really play on that. They just insult each other on occasion. Where's the relationship development in that?